I live in Canada. Each Saturday, I wake up with a morning coffee, switch on the TV, and get to enjoy the beautiful torture that is an Everton 3 PM kickoff. Now, all Premier League games in Canada are streamed on a platform called Fubo TV. But it's not just Everton, and it's not just 3 PM kickoffs. It's all 380 Premier League games, full stop, streamed in HD for the reasonable monthly price of $24.99. And the reason that's so remarkable is this simply does not exist for residents of the United Kingdom, and it's all down to one rule, and its name is the 3 PM Blackout. Now, I'm sure you must be thinking this only applies to a tiny fraction of games, right? Well, that's incorrect, because I went ahead and counted them all. Take a guess what percentage of games you think the 3 PM Blackout impacts. 5, 10, maybe 15%? How about 38%? I'll say that again, 38% of games are not streamed in the UK because of the 3 PM blackout rule. And get this, when we look at all games that are not broadcast regardless of day or time, that number jumps to 46%. To other countries, it seems unthinkable that you would not broadcast almost half of your games for the most popular sports within your own country. La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, League One, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS. Sure, you might need multiple streaming services to watch all of those games, but the point still stands, they're available to watch. For those in the UK though, it's become this rather unusual ritual on television. Rather than watching the game itself, several pundits are placed on TV to talk over the games. Viewers watch as the pundits yell at the screen when a goal is scored, usually producing a flimsy description of what they've just seen.
Ashley Young just trying to make sure he was going to go back almost in the line there to try and help De Gea. Here you go, Stanislas hits the wall, big build-up, volley, back post. They've still got this. Brooks will keep this alive. He's onside. Can he get it in the box? Maybe not. There's dancing. Probably the chance is gone. It'll come in at the box now. No, it won't. 1-1.
And the viewer is expected to wait hours before full highlights are broadcast later that day. All the while, the population can easily go on Twitter, find the goal in a second, dubbed over Middle Eastern commentary. And the question becomes why? Why is this actually in place? So first, we have to actually look at the rule itself. The 3 PM blackout remains viable under UEFA Article 48. This allows member nations to select a 2.5-hour weekend slot where live football is banned from screens. In England, the rule was first proposed by Burnley owner Bob Lord in the 1960s. Lord was a staunch opponent of televised football, motivated part by the low purses each club received, part by the impact it had on the live game, and part because of some pretty shocking anti-Semitism that he willfully made known in public. Despite this, he managed to secure the support of other club owners, which forced the FA to introduce a television blackout from 2:45 until 5:15 every Saturday. Simply, the argument goes like this. A blackout supports more live attendance participation, particularly for those lower league clubs that rely more on gate receipts than TV rights for the majority of their income. The rule is thought to also incentivize those casual fans to support their local club rather than watch it on TV. To this day, there are still multiple lower league club owners that remain adamant that the blackout is vital for their continued success. One of those is Bill Waterson, co-chairman of Altrincham. He explains the 3 PM blackout has existed for a very good reason, and that is to encourage people to physically go to a game. There would be a risk that the casual fan who at 2:30 decides they will go along to a local game would now, particularly if it's raining, stay at home and watch a 3 PM game instead. He estimates the club may lose around 1/3 of those arriving on game day, accounting for £50,000 a year. And so there's some evidence that this could be true. Championship, League One and League Two attendances continue to rise. All three leagues welcome at least 30% more fans on average than they did 20 years ago. And as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And senior voices like Richard Masters agree. He remains a proponent of Article 48 and doesn't see that changing in the near term. And yet, even still, rumours of its demise continue to circulate. It most recently came to a head when the EFL announced its intention to make all 1,891 games available for its broadcasting renegotiations. Both Sky and DAZN battled for this deal, with DAZN the hungrier of the two to pursue a deal including all games. In the end, a £935 million deal with Sky was agreed upon, a 50% increase in valuation on the previous deal, a guarantee of over 1,000 matches per season, but still, the 3 PM blackout would remain, and that deal runs all the way until the 2028-29 season. So it's here that I want to play devil's advocate. Be a pretty boring video if I didn't. So what are some of the common counter-arguments? Let's start by looking a little closer at Article 48, because right now only 2 countries still abide by that rule, England and Scotland, meaning no other country has a blackout. They all allow for games to be broadcast at any time. Now, conclusive evidence that no blackout has is pretty difficult to come by, but I think the closest comparable country in this case would be Germany. The Bundesliga and the Premier League have the highest average live attendance for top divisions. The weather and the climate are fairly comparable, and stadiums and infrastructure are pretty similar across all divisions. The most conclusive analysis is a fan attendance report that cites data from 2010 until 2017. In particular, we're going to look at the Bundesliga 2 versus the Championship. As we can see, average attendance remains comparable overall. Average stadium utilization is higher in the Championship, but long-term growth is 3 times as high in the Bundesliga 2. All in all, the outcomes here look fairly similar. Now, for transparency's sake, I did look at La Liga 2 and Serie B, and there is a significant drop-off versus the Championship. Given Germany's success though, it could actually show there are many factors at play when it comes to live attendance in the lower leagues other than just a blackout rule. One worthy mention here is that Germany have proactively provided solutions to prevent the leagues from competing with one another. Quite simply, different divisions kick off at different times. Bundesliga 2 kicks off at 1:30, Bundesliga kicks off at 3:30. No overlap. All of which to say is that Germany has proved that this can be done if it's implemented correctly. Let's take a look at another argument. During this debate, we focus so much of our attention on the clubs without ever thinking about you, the viewing public. UK viewers already require a mix of subscriptions to watch live football that total up to £1,000 a year. And guess what? Even with that, you're missing out on 46% of games. By comparison, in Canada, you get all of the games bundled into one subscription package for $219 per year. And the question then is, how in the world can that possibly be fair? The fact that someone who lives a stone's throw away from their stadium can't watch it on TV live, but somebody thousands of kilometers can, obviously makes no sense. Even if we play out a scenario when we shrink the distance down. I could be a Newcastle fan living in London. I go to support local teams, QPR, Charlton, Wimbledon, just like the rule supports. But ultimately, I'm still a Newcastle fan, and I want to watch my team without having to pay for trains, hotels, food, drink. And so, what ends up inevitably happening? Well, that brings us to the third and final argument, the issue of illegal streaming. Before continuing, I'm not here to condone the use of these illegal streams as a way to watch football, but it's now clear as day, what once was a marginal issue is now directly in the spotlight, with reports confirming that millions are watching illegal football streams across the UK. The reason is simple. The country has been decimated by a cost of living crisis. Soaring costs by broadcasters make football more expensive to watch than ever, and even when you do subscribe, you're still missing out on nearly half of all games. Consider also that a notable chunk of these games are reserved for the Premier League elite in primetime spots. If I support a lower to mid-table club, I'm actually disproportionately getting less value if my team kicks off more at 3 PM as well. This issue, of course, hasn't gone unnoticed. The crackdown on piracy is ramping up across the UK. 5 men were recently jailed after the 7 million streaming operation was busted. That one provider alone supported 50,000 subscribers, and the perpetrators even cited the blackout as a key ingredient to their popularity. For anyone interested, go and listen to the Pirates versus the Premier League podcast by Matt Cutler and Richard Gillis. As part of this podcast, they commissioned a YouGov poll based around sports piracy in the UK. Crucially, the 2 primary reasons why people said they watched these illegal streams: the inflated cost of illegal subscriptions, and the fact that they don't receive nearly half of all games thanks, again, to the 3 PM blackout rule. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that dropping the blackout rule is going to stop the whole illegal streaming market, but what it will do is take the money out of criminals' hands and put that back into the pockets of clubs who can reinvest it for the future. When we look at this picture holistically then, on the one hand you have the argument for the blackout, encouraging live attendance, providing essential support for lower league clubs. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. On the other hand, you have the case to ditch it, providing more games for fans, reducing illegal streams, and utilizing a similar model that's worked in countries such as Germany. When I look at these two options, I can't help but feel there's a middle ground that could appease all parties. So what I'm about to do is completely reinvent how Saturday might look. So similar to Germany, most lower league clubs will kick off at midday, Premier League games will kick off at 3 PM, and the 5:30 slot will stay there for primetime games. Instantly, this negates some of the impact on lower league attendances because it allows fans to go to 2 consecutive games within their own town or city. For the 3 PM kickoffs, envision an NFL red zone style broadcast, one that has revolutionized the viewing experience in America. All games will be available for live viewing, including game announcers, key highlights, fantasy football alerts, and in-match statistics. Fans can browse seamlessly between matches on a connected TV or via a TV provider. All of this offers a tremendously more valuable viewing experience and provides an obvious differentiator from an illegal stream that's choppy and cuts out every 5 minutes. With the increase in broadcast and sponsorship revenue from the additional games, ensure money is then fed down the ladder in support of lower league clubs like Altrincham for them to use in their continued development and growth. Better yet, why doesn't football embrace the fact that we live in a digital age and provide the resources to lower league clubs to stream their own games online? This in itself would provide a self-perpetuating revenue cycle. More digital income means more available money to spend on players, infrastructure and facilities, which equals a better in-game fan experience, equals more bums on seats come game day. All of which to say, I think my opinion ultimately lands on the idea that this is a problem that you can innovate out of, rather than just digging your head further and further into the sand. I mean, ultimately, I'm just a guy spitballing ideas here. But when I look at how much the internet has revolutionized the broadcast experience, a 60-year-old rule doesn't feel fit for purpose in this modern age. And I'm happy to be proven wrong, and I feel like the FA and the Football League could do that. All of these proposals they could trial for 6 months or for a year, provide a transparent cost-benefit analysis of the whole operation, and then we can fully know what the impact is of the blackout. Given the rising number of problems, to me though, it makes sense to be proactive. From a revenue perspective, from a broadcast perspective, from a fan perspective, from an anti-piracy perspective. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Interested to hear what you think? Leave a comment below and happy to discuss further. Until next time.